Here we go, folks. Bocicero has taken an early lead, pulling ahead of the pack like a rocket. Sabina 27 is hot on their heels, looking to capitalize on any mistakes. And don't count out Duff Dad just yet. They're hanging tight in third, ready to pounce at a moment's notice. It's shaping up to be an exciting battle right from the get-go. Sabina 27 has successfully taken the lead, moving into pole after overtaking Bocicero. The current battle for pole features Sabina 27 in the Ford Mustang. Mark 171 from Team Plus against Bocicero in the Shelby Jeefer 569. Meanwhile, Bocicero is now engaged in a close fight for P2 with Aminsan from Team Nafgom Kings, who is driving the Chevrolet Chevelle SS70. The positions are highly competitive, and the dynamics between the cars show a strategic push as they navigate the track. And they're off. Bocicero takes the early lead, showcasing some impressive speed in that first corner. Sabina 27 is right on their tail, not giving an inch, while Aminsan is keeping a steady pace in third. It's a tight pack so far, every second counts. Let's see if Sabina 27 can find a way to overtake. Sniku 515 is in pursuit of Groningjeb, reducing the gap by 13.7 seconds. Meanwhile, Kakaruta Thirdzedi is also gaining on Sniku 515, with a reduced gap of 7.1 seconds. In the mix, Amy is making strides toward Kazushuk, closing in by 6.5 seconds. The positions are shifting as each driver pushes hard for those crucial overtakes. Lord of the Jungle continues to close the gap on Groningjeb, now just 6 seconds behind. Meanwhile, Sniku 515 has encountered difficulties, dropping back 8 positions to P25. The battle for pole is heating up as Bocicero in the Shelby GTF 569 and Sabina 27 in the Ford Mustang Mach 171 are engaged in a tight contest. The race dynamics are shifting rapidly as these drivers jockey for position. Rizaldi Adha has successfully moved into Pfaur after executing a precise overtake on Duff Dadity. Meanwhile, Hugrid 3 has climbed up to Pate, getting ahead of Nukembukan with a well-timed maneuver. Okeoki 3 has also made progress, advancing to 10 by overtaking Cedric. The race is seeing dynamic position changes as drivers push for better placements. Sounds like everyone's getting creative in here. Inspiration can strike at any moment, especially when racing is on. And waking up late? That's the dream. What's everyone planning to do with all this free time? Talladega is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Kadishuk by 10.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Okayoki 3 in the Dodge Dart Hemi Superstar and Cydric in the Chevrolet Chevelle SS70 are locked in a fierce battle for 10th place. Amy has successfully moved up to 18th position after overtaking Kazushuk. The race dynamics are intensifying as the drivers push their limits. Greninja is continuing to close the gap on Maya, now only 10.7 seconds behind. The race dynamics are shifting as Greninja increases speed through Sector 2, showing stronger acceleration out of the corners. Maya maintains a steady pace, but will need to defend her position as Greninja approaches. Other competitors remain stable in their positions, with no significant overtakes occurring at this moment. Haha, sounds like a wild day out there. Just make sure you don't let those storms rain on your parade. Keep it dry and safe, everyone. Cloud with rain. Automobile dashing away. Greninja has successfully reduced the gap to Maya, now just 12.1 seconds behind. Meanwhile, Duff Dad in the Chevrolet Chevelle SS70 and Rizaldiata in the Ford Mustang Mach 171 are locked in a tight contest for power, with both drivers pushing hard. In Seven, Hugo 3 in another Chevrolet SS70 is closely pursuing Musirius Guy, who is navigating the track in an Aston Martin Vantage 77, making for an intense battle in that position as well. The dynamics between these pairs continue to evolve as they jockey for positions. Greninja has significantly reduced the gap to Sir Aaronbot by 10.3 seconds, now making it a close contest for their positions. Meanwhile, Winzerius Guy from Team No Name Racing and Cedric are locked in a tight battle for P9, with Winzerius behind the wheel of an Aston Martin Vantage 77 and Cedric piloting a Chevrolet Chevelle SS70. In addition, Alpine has advanced to P21 after successfully overtaking Lord of the Jungle. The race dynamics continue to shift as strategies unfold. Rizaldi Ada is rapidly closing the gap on Duffdad, now just 2.7 seconds behind. In the battle for P9, Wazirius Guy in the Aston Martin Vantage 77 is locked in a duel with Sidrek in the Chevrolet Chevelle SS. Meanwhile, Grinning Jib has successfully moved up to P27 after overtaking Sir Ironbot. The dynamics are shifting as the race continues. Wazirius Guy and Okayoki 3 continue their intense battle for Pen, with Wazirius Guy in the Aston Martin Vantage 77 just managing to hold off the Dodge Dart Hemi Superstock. Meanwhile, 1999 Setembro has successfully overtaken Violin Olive Garden and secured P12 Poro. In addition, Grinning Jib is making significant progress, closing the gap to XI17 by 3.4 seconds, indicating a potential move for position soon. Hug 3 has successfully moved into 6th after overtaking Lacroix 1980 in a competitive maneuver. The battle between Hugard 3, piloting a Chevrolet Chevelle SS70, and Lacroixon 1980, driving an Aston Martin Vantage 77, continues as they jockey for position. Meanwhile, Electric Murray from Team Court Express is making progress, reducing the gap to Zyga 22 by 3.8 seconds, indicating a potential challenge for position C. Hugged 3 has successfully moved into 6th after overtaking Lacroix 1980. Zyga 22 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Violin Olive Garden by 2.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Kakarado Fiterlins has advanced to P-Team, getting past Amy in the process. Renaniab is now just 5.8 seconds behind XA17, showing impressive speed as they close the gap. Meanwhile, Wazirius Guy in the Aston Martin Vantage 77 is engaged in a tight battle with Okayoki 3, who is piloting the Dodge Dart Hemi Superstock for Penn. Up ahead, Electric Murray is also making strides, reducing the distance to Captain Potato by 2.6 seconds. Grinning from Team Also No Name Racing has made significant progress, reducing the gap to XCI 17 by 5.1 seconds. Meanwhile, Sabina 27 is actively pursuing Butchie Zero, narrowing the distance by 2.2 seconds. Additionally, Amundsen is closing in on Sabina 27 with a gap reduction of 2.4 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as these drivers increase their pace. Grenijeb is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Oxia 17 by 7.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Rizaldi Adha is also gaining on Duff Dad, cutting down the distance by 2.3 seconds. In the midst of this action, Nukembokim has advanced to 6 after successfully overtaking Hugad 3. Lord of the Jungle in the Pontiac DTO 65 is currently holding off El Pios in the Jaguar E-Type Series 1 as they approach the final turn. Lord of the Jungle has managed to maintain a slight edge, but IOSD is right on his tail, looking for an opportunity to overtake. As they exit the turn, El Pios attempts a dive on the inside, but Lord of the Jungle defends well, keeping his position. The gap remains close as they head into the next straight. This battle for P21 is intensifying. Sabina 27 is now just 2.7 seconds behind Butcher Zero, steadily closing the gap. Meanwhile, Cydric has successfully moved up to 8th place after overtaking Lacroix 1980. Cydric, piloting a Chevrolet Chevelle SS70, is currently in a fierce battle with Lacroix 1980, who is driving an Aston Martin Vate Vantage 77. The competition for Pate is heating up as both drivers push their limits. Electric Murray has significantly decreased the distance to Captain Potato, now trailing by just 4.8 seconds. Meanwhile, Greninjeb is also making strides, cutting the gap to Obelix Almax down to 3.7 seconds. Both drivers are showing impressive pace as they aim for overtakes. Greninjeb has successfully reduced the gap to Obelix Max, now just 3.1 seconds behind. The pace is picking up as Greninjeb seems to be gaining speed on the straights. Meanwhile, in the mid-pack, Calcanon has made a notable overtake on Speedsters, moving into 6th position. The battle for the top places is tightening, as the drivers adjust their strategies heading into the next few turns. Hugget 3 has reduced the gap to Rizaldi Adha from Team Quark Express by 3 seconds, indicating a strong push as they aim for the position. Meanwhile, Greninjeb has made a notable advancement, moving up to P24 after successfully overtaking Obelix Maxdadi. The race dynamics is shifting as drivers continue to vie for better positions. Sabay 27 has taken the lead and is now in pole after successfully overtaking Butchazero. Aminsan is gaining ground on Butchazero, reducing the gap by 3.1 seconds. Meanwhile, there's a tight contest for P3 between Emerson and Duff Dad from Team Live for Speed, both pushing hard to secure that position. Rizaldi-Atta has successfully moved into power after overtaking Duff Dad from Team Live for Speed. Meanwhile, Nukem Bakum is making significant progress, shrinking the gap to Huggard 3 by 2.7 seconds. Additionally, Okayoki 3 is also gaining ground on Missouri's Guy, narrowing the distance by 3.5 seconds. Kakaroto 30 and Electric Murray are engaged in a tight contest for 16th position. Kakaroto 13, the Tave Griffith 200, is currently holding off Electric Murray, who is piloting the Holden Monaro GTS 68. The two cars are neck and neck as they navigate the track, with Electric Murray attempting to make an inside move. Meanwhile, Alpine SD is steadily reducing the gap to Amy by 2.8 seconds. The pressure is building as Alpine SD gains ground, showcasing impressive speed and strategy. As they approach the next corner, it will be crucial for both drivers to maintain their momentum to secure their positions. Suzanne Greenberg is making significant progress, closing the gap to Electric Murray by 5 seconds. Meanwhile, Grenijeb from Team Also No Name Racing is also gaining ground, reducing the distance to Lord of the Jungle by 9.5 seconds. Additionally, Rizaldi-Atta is narrowing the gap to Amundsen, cutting it down by 4.4 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as these drivers push for position. Captain Potato is now in P11, after overtaking Zyger 22, gaining momentum, and moving up the field rapidly. Laprason 1980 is also making strides, reducing the gap to Cedric by 4.2 seconds. The competition is tightening, as Captain Potato continues to push forward. Amy has made significant progress, moving up to 16, after successfully overtaking 4 cars. Snaku 5 and 15 is gaining on Maya, reducing the gap by 7.4 seconds, indicating a potential challenge ahead. Meanwhile, Kadshut from Team S1 has overtaken Amy, and has now taken 15, showcasing strategic maneuvering in the mid-pack. Alpine SD is making significant progress, now just 62 seconds behind Zygoda 22 from Team Vanguard. Meanwhile, Snuku 515 is catching up to Maya, narrowing the gap to 6.9 seconds. In the battle for 4th place, Rizaldi Adha from Team Quark Express in the Ford Mustang Mach 171 is engaged in a close fight with Duff Dad, who is piloting a Chevrolet Chevelle SS70. The competition for that position is heating up as they race side by side. Lacroix 1980 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Cedric by 6.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Greninja is also closing in on Lord of the Jungle with a gap reduction of 7.4 seconds. Sneaker 515 is gaining ground on Maya from Team Death Robots, now just 12.5 seconds behind. The competition is heating up with these drivers making their moves. Snickle 515 is making significant progress, now just 10.5 seconds behind Maya as they approach the next turn. Meanwhile, Rizaldi Adha is closing in on Buchizero, reducing their gap by 4.4 seconds. In another part of the track, Wazirius Guy is steadily catching up to Lacrosson 1980, slicing down the distance by 2.7 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting with these advancements. Captain Potato from Team Racing Potatoes has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Wazirius Guy from No Name Racing by 5.5 seconds. XEI17 is also advancing, closing in on Greninja by 57.3 seconds. Meanwhile, Snuku 515 is catching up to Maya, narrowing the distance by 10.30 seconds. Race dynamics are shifting as these drivers increase their pace. Sneku 515 has reduced the gap to Maya by 9.4 seconds, showcasing impressive speed. Meanwhile, Woon Sirius Guy is gaining on the Cross 1980, cutting the distance down by 2.7 seconds. In another battle, Kazushuk is closing in on Suzanne Greenberg, with a gap reduction of 2.9 seconds. All cars are maintaining competitive paces as they jockey for positions. Buchicero has taken the lead, moving up to pawn after successfully overtaking Aminzan. Aminzana has now secured P2, having passed 7027. Duff Dad is also making gains, moving into foul by overtaking Huggard 3. Each driver is adjusting their strategies as the race progresses. Cedric has successfully moved up to position 5 after overtaking Lacroix 1980. Following that, Lacroixon 1980 has gained position 6 by overtaking with Sirius Guy. Meanwhile, Win Sirius Guy is now in position 7, after passing Rizaldi at Adet Dot. The race dynamics are shifting rapidly, as positions change hands. Captain Potato from Team Racing Potatoes has closed the gap to Sabina 27 by 2.5 seconds, tightening the competition for that position. Kakaroto Tetterade has successfully overtaken Nukem Boken, advancing to Beliven. Meanwhile, there is an intense battle for 14 between Kazashuk in an Alfa Romeo Montreal and Suzanne Greenberg in a Holden Monaro GTS 68, indicating a close contest in the midfield. Aminsons has taken the lead, moving into pole after a successful overtake on Buchisero. Zydrek is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Hugrid 3 by 3.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Win Sirius Guy is also gaining on Lacroixon 1980, closing in by 3.7 seconds. The positions are shifting as the race continues. Suzanne Greenberg is now just 6.1 seconds behind Electric Murray, steadily closing the gap. Lacroixon 1980 has advanced to 5 after successfully overtaking with Sirius Guy. The Tainum Fushde what one them off the was. Now, Win Sirius Guy has retaliated by moving back up to 6, taking over Buchizero's position. The race dynamics are shifting rapidly. Sabina 27 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Win Sirius Guy by 5.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Kakaroto Tetterade is also working to catch up to Buchizero, but the gap remains substantial at 55.4 seconds. Sabina 27 continues to close in on Win Sirius Guy with consistent speed. Rizaldi Adha is gaining on Captain Potato, cutting the gap down by 5 seconds. Amy and Zyga 22 are locked in a tight battle for P19, with Amy in her Alfa Romeo Montreal, and Zyga 22 pushing hard in the Dodge Dart Hemi Superstock. Meanwhile, Grinning Jeb is also making moves, reducing the distance to El Piosti by 3.3 seconds. The competition is heating up across multiple positions. Rizaldi Adha is now only 2.5 seconds behind Captain Potato, steadily closing the gap. Violin Oliver Garden is also gaining ground on Electric Murray, reducing their distance by 2.3 seconds. Meanwhile, Zygo 2022 has advanced to P19 after successfully overtaking Amy from Team Death Robots. Cedric has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Hugo 3 by 5.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Rizaldi Adha has successfully overtaken Captain Potato, moving into 8th place. The race dynamics are tightening as positions shift and gaps close. Amundsen has taken the lead from Duff Dad, now firmly in pole. The tussle between them is intensifying as they navigate through the corners. Kakaroto Dertain remains locked in a fierce contest with Nukembokum for Palathan. Kakaroto 30 is in it for Griffith 200, while Nukembokum drives a Ford Mustang Mach 171. Meanwhile, Electric Mary is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Nukembokum by 3 seconds. The battles are heating up across the field. Snaku 515 from Team Racing Potatoes has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Sararanbod by 495.1 seconds. Meanwhile, Cedric from Live for Speed is closing in on Hug 3, narrowing the distance by 2.5 seconds. Additionally, Win Serious Guy is also making strides, decreasing the gap to La Croissant 1980 by 2.3 seconds. The competition is tightening as these drivers push to gain positions. Sneaku 515 has reduced the gap to Sararanbod by 8.6 seconds and is gaining ground. Meanwhile, La Poisson 1980 from Team Blast is closing in on Cedric, cutting the distance by 4.4 seconds. Additionally, Violin Olive Garden has advanced to P13 after successfully overtaking Electric Murray. Buchitsero has reduced the gap to Captain Potato by 5.6 seconds, indicating a significant increase in pace. Meanwhile, Greninjeb is also making strides, closing in on El Pio SD by 4.7 seconds. Both drivers are showing strong performance as they push forward in the race. Snaku 515 has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Sararanbod by 5.3 seconds. Meanwhile, Hugo 3 has successfully overtaken Duff Dad, and is now in 2nd place. Cedric is also gaining on Duff Dad, closing the distance by 2.8 seconds. El Pio SD is now just 5.2 seconds behind Amy from Team Death Robots, showing impressive speed as they close the gap. Meanwhile, Snaku 515 is also making moves, reducing their distance to Sararanbod by 6.2 seconds. In the midfield, Butcher Zero has successfully overtaken Nukembokum, advancing to 7. The racing dynamics are shifting rapidly as competitors push for better positions. Violin Olivergarden is reducing the distance to win Sirius Guy, now only 8.6 seconds behind. Suzanne Greenberg is closing in on Captain Potato by 5.4 seconds. Sneku 515 is also gaining on Sir Ironbot, narrowing the gap by 7.8 seconds. The competition is tightening up as these drivers push hard for position. Snake 515 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Sir Ironbot by 5.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Hu Godfrey has successfully taken the lead, moving into pole after overtaking Amundsen. The competition is heating up as Hu Godfrey and Amundsen are now engaged in a battle for the top position, with both cars closely contesting for the lead. Cedric is gaining momentum, reducing the gap to Duff Dad by 5.1 seconds. Sneku 515 is also making progress, closing in on Sir Ironbot with a 6.1 second reduction. Meanwhile, Amundsen has taken the lead, overtaking Hu Godfrey and moving up to first position. Lacroisson 1980 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Nukembukem Bochum by 5.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Sneku 515 is also gaining on Sir Ironbot, cutting the distance down by 6 seconds. In another battle, Bocchizero is closing in on Rizaldi Adha, narrowing the gap to 2.8 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as drivers push for position. Sabina 27 is now just 6.6 seconds behind Cedric, showing impressive pace. Sneku 515 is gaining on Sir Ironbot, reducing the distance by 7.4 seconds. Target 3 is also making progress, cutting down the gap to Duff Dad from Team Life of Speed by 2.1 seconds. Lacroisson 1980 has reduced the gap to Nukembukem to 4.9 seconds, showing significant pace. Meanwhile, Sirius Guy is also making progress, cutting down the distance to Lacroisson 1980 by 2.6 seconds. In the midfield, Kazushuk has successfully overtaken Kakaroto 13, advancing to 16. The dynamics are shifting as we see these moves unfold on the track. Bocchizero is gaining on Rizaldi Adha, reducing the distance between them by 2.1 seconds. The pressure is mounting as they approach the next corner. Meanwhile, behind them, we see Kuroi drifting slightly, trying to maintain pace but losing time compared to the leaders. In the midfield, Seraphin has just executed a clean overtake on Vortex, moving up a position. The dynamics are shifting as we enter the next lap. Sabina 27 has successfully moved into P3, making an impressive overtake on Cedric. Meanwhile, Cedric is not giving up, as they are closing the gap to Sabina 27 by 2.8 seconds. In another part of the track, Bocicero from Team Quark Express is gaining on Rizaldi Adha, reducing the distance by 3.4 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as drivers push for better positions. Bocicero is now in P3 after successfully overtaking Duff Dad. Nukembokum has made progress as well, moving up to 6, having overtaken Hugged 3. Meanwhile, 1999 Setembro is closing the gap on Zago 22, reducing it by 2.8 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as positions continue to change. Captain Potato has made a significant move, overtaking 4 cars and advancing to Believin. Okayoki 3 is gaining momentum, reducing the gap to Captain Potato by 10.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Cedric is also on the charge, closing in on Duff Dad, narrowing the distance by 2.1 seconds. The competition is heating up as these drivers push towards the front. Nukembokum is now just 2.9 seconds behind Duff Dad, making significant progress in the chase. Meanwhile, Violenuyvergarden has advanced to 15 after successfully overtaking Okayoki 3 Dostoy. In response, Okayoki 3 has moved up to 16 by passing Zago 22A. The positions are shifting rapidly as the drivers fight for their places on the track. Violenuyvergarden is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Amy by 6.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Suzanne Greenberg is also on the move, narrowing the distance to Zygo 22 by 57.2 seconds. In the midfield, Amin-san has successfully overtaken Hugad 3, advancing to Savin. Rizaldi Adha has significantly closed the gap to Sabina 27 by 2.1 seconds, putting pressure on Sabina 27 as they approach the next turn. Sabina 27 will need to defend their position effectively to maintain the lead. Meanwhile, in the back, we see an aggressive move from Cox, who just overtook drivers on the inside, gaining a crucial position. The battle for the mid-pack is heating up as several cars are jostling for better placement. Buccisero is making significant progress, with the gap to Rizaldi Adha now reduced to 3.5 seconds. The AI seems to be increasing its pace, and it will be interesting to see if this momentum can lead to an overtake in the upcoming laps. Meanwhile, the other cars are holding their positions, but there's potential for some action if Buccisero continues to push hard. Suzanne Greenberg has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Zygo 22 by 3.9 seconds. Zygo 22 currently holds a steady pace, but it seems Greenberg's strategy is starting to pay off as she gains momentum. Meanwhile, the rest of the pack remains within striking distance, with several cars shifting positions in the midfield. The dynamic is heating up as drivers prepare for potential overtakes. Kakarado the 30 has successfully moved up to P12, overtaking Kazishuk. The battle for this position remains intense, as Kazishuk, driving the Alfa Romeo Montreal, is attempting to reclaim his position from Kakaroto the 30, who is piloting a Tyrrell Griffith 200. The dynamic between these two cars showcases their contrasting strengths, with Kakarado 30 currently holding the edge. Suzanne Greenberg is significantly closing the gap to Electric Murray, now just 5.2 seconds behind. Nukem Bakum has successfully overtaken Duff Dad, and has moved up to Puffhour. Meanwhile, Duff Dad and Cydric from Team Live for Speed are engaged in a tight battle for 5, with both cars exchanging positions as they push for an advantage. Kakaroto Thetre is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Captain Potato down to 5.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Duff Dad and Cydric are locked in a tight contest for 5th place, with both cars displaying impressive maneuvering. Aminsan is also on the move, cutting down the distance to Cedric by 2.4 seconds, indicating a potential overtaking opportunity soon. Buccisero has reduced the gap to Rizaldi Ada from Team Quark Express by 2.2 seconds, indicating a potential challenge for position. Meanwhile, Lacrosson 1980 is also gaining on Hugger 3, closing that distance by 2.6 seconds. Captain Potato is on the move as well, narrowing the gap to Aziri Sky by 3 seconds. All three battles are heating up as the drivers push their limits. Nukenbokum has significantly reduced the gap to Buchazero, now trailing by just 4.5 seconds. The pace is picking up as Nukenbokum gains momentum, indicating a potential for an overtaking maneuver if the trend continues. Meanwhile, the rest of the pack remains steady, with no major changes in positions in the last few moments. The dynamics are shifting as we approach the next corner, where strategic driving will be key. Rizaldi Adha is making significant progress, reducing the gap to 7:27 by 2.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Winzerius Guy from Team No Name Racing is also gaining on La Croissant 1980, cutting the distance by 2.1 seconds. Cacarotto Trading is closing in on Captain Potato, narrowing the gap by 4 seconds. Position changes are definitely on the horizon as these drivers ramp up their pace. Amy has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Kazashuk by 8 seconds. Meanwhile, Buchazero is also gaining ground, cutting down the distance to Rizaldi Adha by 2.5 seconds. In a similar fashion, Nukambokum is closing in on Buchazero, with a reduction of 2.5 seconds as well. The race dynamics are shifting as these drivers position themselves for potential overtakes. Nukambokum is currently in pursuit of Buchazero, reducing the distance by 3.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Winzerius Guy is on the tail of La Croissant 1980, cutting the gap down by 4.4 seconds. Additionally, Zygodot 22 is gaining on 1999 Setembro, closing that gap by 2.7 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as these competitors push for position. Cedric has just made a move on Duffdad, taking 5 after a tight battle. Captain Potato is significantly closing the gap to Winzerius Guy, reducing it by 3.4 seconds as they head into the next turn. Meanwhile, 1999 Setembro has successfully overtaken Zyga 22 from Team Vanguard, and has moved up to 15. The positions are shifting as the race progresses. Duffdad is currently in pursuit of Nukambokum, reducing the gap by 2.8 seconds as they navigate the track. Meanwhile, Winzerius Guy has closed in on La Croissant 1980, cutting the distance by 4.7 seconds. In the midfield, Violin Olive Garden has made a move to gain 12th place, successfully overtaking Okioki 3. Sabina 27 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Amundsen by 11.1 seconds. Meanwhile, Alpio SD is also closing in on Amy, cutting the distance by 10.7 seconds. In a notable move, Cedric has successfully overtaken Huggard 3, advancing to P3 duel. Aquason 1980 has significantly reduced the gap to 7:27 by 4.3 seconds as they navigate through the track. Meanwhile, Serious Guy has made progress, moving up to P9 after successfully overtaking Nukem Buckham. The race dynamics are shifting as positions continue to change. Obelix Zamax has significantly closed the gap to Lord of the Jungle, now at 11.4 seconds. Meanwhile, Violin Olivergarden is also making strides, reducing the distance to Captain Potato by 2.1 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as these drivers push their limits. Amy is continuing to close the gap with Suzanne Greenberg, now down to 3.5 seconds. In the meantime, Obelix Zamax has made a notable move, advancing to 23rd position after successfully overtaking Kazisha. Kakaroto the third is gaining on Electrovmary, reducing the gap to 2.7 seconds. In the meantime, Turbois has made a successful overtake on Speederman, moving into 4th place. Meanwhile, Drifting is holding steady in 3rd, maintaining a 1-second lead over Turboace. The top positions are tightening as Kakaroto the third continues to push forward. Lord of the Jungle is now just 456.9 seconds behind El Pio SD, making a significant gain. Duff Dad has taken the lead, moving to Pone after an overtake on Cedric. Cedric has also moved up to P2, successfully overtaking Huggard 3. The positions are shifting rapidly as the race progresses. Huggard 3 and Emerson are engaged in a tight battle for P3 as they navigate the curves. Sabina 27 has successfully overtaken Lacroix 1980, advancing to 5. Following that move, Lacroix 1980 retaliated and pushed past Rizaldi Adha, reclaiming 6. The positions are shifting rapidly as the race progresses. Lord of the Jungle has significantly reduced the gap to El Pio SD by 66.9 seconds, showing impressive speed and strategy. Meanwhile, Snaku 515 is making a strong push toward Kazishuk, narrowing the distance by 8 seconds. Additionally, Sabina 27 is gaining ground on Amundsen, cutting the gap down by 4.5 seconds. The competition is tightening up as positions start to shift. Sidrak is currently gaining on Duff Dad, reducing the gap to 2.7 seconds. Lacroixon 1980 is also making progress, closing in on 7:27 from Team Blast by 4.1 seconds. Kakaroto 30 is reeling in electric Mary with a gap reduction of 4.9 seconds. The race dynamics are tightening as these drivers push their limits. Sabina 27 has successfully reduced the gap to Amundsen by 4 seconds, showing strong pace as they approach the next corner. Wuziriasky is also making strides, cutting down the distance to Butchazero by 3.1 seconds, indicating a potential duel for position in the near future. Meanwhile, Suzanne Greenberg is gaining on Kakaroto 13, closing the gap by 2:30 seconds, which could lead to an exciting overtaking opportunity if this trend continues. Exia 17 has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Obelix and Max down to 8.8 seconds. Sabine 27 is also gaining ground on Amundsen, with a reduced gap of 3.1 seconds. The battle for 6 intensifies as Lacroixon 1980 in the Aston Martin Vantage 77 and Rizaldi Auda in the Ford Mustang Mach 171 are locked in close competition. Sniku 515 has decreased the gap to Exia 17 by 6.7 seconds, making significant progress in their pursuit. Meanwhile, Rizaldi Adha from Team Quark Express has successfully moved up to 6 after overtaking Lacroixon 1980. The battle for 6 continues as Rizaldi Adha in the Ford Mustang Mach 171 and Lacroixon 1980 in the Aston Martin Vantage 77 are closely matched, indicating a tense dynamic between these two drivers. Sadrak is gaining on Duff Dad, reducing the gap to 6.8 seconds. Meanwhile, Captain Potato is also making progress, narrowing the distance to Nukam Bokum from Team Death Robots by 5.6 seconds. The competition is tightening as both Sidrak and Captain Potato continue to push forward. Kakaroto 13 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Violin Olive Garden by 5.6 seconds, showing excellent pace. Meanwhile, Hugo 3 from Team Nafgun Kings and Amundsen are locked in a tight contest for 3rd place, exchanging positions frequently. In the battle for 7th, Bacha 0 in the classic Shelby GT5 169 is under pressure from Lacroixon 1980. Piloting the Aston Martin Vantage 77, with both cars closely matched in performance. The dynamics of the race are shifting as these drivers push their limits. Sneaker 515 is now just 5.1 seconds behind XCI17, making a strong push for that position. Meanwhile, Winzerius Guy is also gaining ground on the Corsa 1980, reducing the gap by 2.1 seconds. Captain Potato is keeping the pressure on Nukenbocken, closing in by 2.2 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as these competitors intensify their effort. Okioki 3 has been gaining on Electric Mary from Team Quark Express, reducing the gap by 11.7 seconds. Meanwhile, Butchizero is making ground on Rizaldi Adha, closing the distance by 2.1 seconds. In a surprising move, Electric Mary has overtaken Okioki 3, now securing P12 in the standings. Nukenbocken has reduced the gap to La Croissant 1980 by 5.2 seconds and is gaining momentum. Meanwhile, 1999 Setembro is also making strides, closing in on Kakarot of the Terzi by another 5.2 seconds. In a separate battle, Amy is attempting to close the distance to Zygote 22, currently trailing by 48.5 seconds. Each position is shifting as the race progresses. Cedric has reduced the gap to Duff Dad, now trailing by just 3.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Amundsen is also making moves, cutting down the distance to Cedric by 4.4 seconds. In another battle, Rizaldi Adha is closing in on Sabina 27, now only 3.9 seconds behind. The dynamics are shifting as the drivers push for better positions. Snelko 515 has made significant progress, reducing the gap to XI17 by 6.1 seconds, indicating a strong pace from him. Meanwhile, Amundsen and Hugo 3 are engaged in a tight battle for third position, with both cars showing competitive speed. In another development, Butchizero is also closing in on Rizaldi Adha, decreasing the distance by 3.6 seconds, suggesting a potential fight for position soon. Rizaldi Adha has significantly reduced the gap to Sabina 27, now just 5.4 seconds behind. Meanwhile, Winzerius Guy is also making progress, cutting the distance to Butchizero down to 4.4 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as both drivers continue to push for position. Hey, Captain Potato. Potato, thanks a million for the 100 bits. You're fueling this stream like a turbocharged engine. Let's keep the good vibes rolling. Automobile dashing. Cedric is currently making significant progress, narrowing the gap to Duffdad by 230 seconds. Grenin Jeb is also gaining on Amy, closing the distance by 3 seconds. Meanwhile, XDR 17 is catching up to Obelix Max, reducing their lead by 2.2 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as these racers push for better positions. Rizaldi Adha is making significant progress, reducing the gap to 7:27 by 2.9 seconds. Meanwhile, Captain Potato is also gaining ground, cutting down the distance to Nukem Bochum by 2.2 seconds. The competition is tightening as both drivers push harder to catch their respective targets. Cedric is now in pole after successfully overtaking Duffdad. Sabina 27 from Team Blast is closing in on Haggard 3, reducing the gap by 3.1 seconds. Meanwhile, Nukem Bochum has advanced to P9 after overtaking Lacroix 1980. Captain Potato has significantly closed the gap to Lacroix 1980, now just 14.6 seconds behind. Sabina 27 is also making progress, reducing the distance to Haggard 3 by 2.2 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as these drivers push hard to gain positions. Captain Potato's pursuit of Lacroix 1980 continues to intensify, while Sabina 27 is applying pressure on Haggard 3. Rizaldi Adha is now just 5.8 seconds behind Sabini 27, making significant progress in closing that gap. Meanwhile, Nukem Bochum has successfully moved into Pate after overtaking Wazirius Guy. The race dynamics are shifting as these drivers adjust their strategies. Kasishuk is closing in on Maya, reducing the gap by 519.1 seconds. Bujit Zero from Team Quark Express has narrowed the distance to Rizaldi Adha by 3 seconds. Laquason 1980 is also making strides, cutting the gap to Captain Potato by 2.9 seconds. Nukem Bochum has significantly reduced the gap to Bukizero by 5 seconds, putting pressure on him for a potential overtake. Meanwhile, Laquason 1980 has successfully moved up to 10th position after overtaking Captain Potato. The race dynamics are tightening as drivers jockey for position. Violin Oliver Garden is making significant progress, narrowing the gap to Captain Potato by 48.6 seconds. Meanwhile, La Croissant 1980 is also gaining ground, reducing the distance to Win Serious Guy by 2.1 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as both competitors push hard to close in on their targets. Hey Safakar! Welcome back to the racetrack. Racing car dashing away, ready to cheer on those AI speed demons? Let's rev up the fun. Party Popper. Captain Potato has narrowed the gap to La Croissant 1980 from Team Blast by 9.8 seconds. Meanwhile, Violin Oliver Garden is gaining on Captain Potato, reducing the distance by 3 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as the race progresses. Amincent has successfully moved into P2, executing an overtake on Duff Dad. Captain Potato from Team Racing Potatoes is now just 3.3 seconds behind Le Croissant 1980, steadily closing the distance. Meanwhile, Saiga 22 is gaining on 1999 September, narrowing the gap by 2.7 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as positions are contested. Rizaldi Adha and Bucchizero are locked in a tight battle for 6, with Rizaldi in a Ford Mustang Mach 171 and Bucchizero behind the wheel of a Shelby G569. Meanwhile, Win Serious Guy is rapidly closing in on Nukembaka, reducing the gap by 2.2 seconds. In the midfield, 1999's Tembro has just overtaken Kakarot of the 30 and has moved up to 15. Bucchizero and Rizaldi Adha are locked in a tight battle for 6th place, with Bucchizero in the classic Shelby G569 and Rizaldi Adha in the Ford Mustang Mach 71. Violin Oliver Garden is making a strong push, reducing the gap to Captain Potato by 2.8 seconds. Meanwhile, Saiga 22 is also gaining ground on 1999 September, cutting the distance by 2.2 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as these drivers show their skills on the track. Nukem Bokum has reduced the gap to Rizaldi Adha by 9.9 seconds, showcasing impressive speed and strategy. Meanwhile, Greninjeb is working hard to catch up to Kakarot of that they said, cutting down the distance by 57.9 seconds. In a tighter battle, Sniku 515 is closing in on Exia 17, with a 5.3 second difference. The dynamics are shifting as these races push their limits. Duff Dad and Hug 3 are locked in a close battle for third position, with both cars displaying aggressive maneuvers. Okayoki 3 is steadily gaining on Violin Olive Garden, reducing the gap to 3.4 seconds. Meanwhile, Kakaroto the Tetsun is also making progress, closing in on Amy with a 3.7-second difference. The competition is heating up as these drivers push their limits. Aminazon continues to close the gap on Cedric, now down to 4.3 seconds. Meanwhile, Lacroixon 1980 is also making progress, reducing the distance to Winzerius Guy by 4.6 seconds. In the midfield, 1999 Settembro has successfully overtaken Zygo 22 and has moved up to 14th position. Sabine 27 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Hugged 3 by 3.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Winzerius Guy is also gaining on Nukembokem, cutting the distance by 3.1 seconds. Amy has successfully moved up to 17 after overtaking Electric Murray. The race dynamics are shifting as these drivers push their limits. Kakaroto Fatudi has significantly reduced the gap to Electric Murray, now trailing by 12.3 seconds. Duff Dad from Team Le for Speed is also making progress, decreasing the distance to Amin-san by 3.3 seconds. The competitive dynamics are tightening as these drivers push their limits. Electric Murray has successfully moved into 17, executing an overtaking maneuver on Suzanne Greenberg. The positioning indicates a solid performance as Electric Murray continues to gain ground in the race. Greninja is rapidly gaining on Suzanne Greenberg, with the gap now down to 5.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Buchizero has successfully overtaken Sabina 27, moving up to 5-2. In a strategic move, Suzanne Greenberg is also closing in on Kakaroto III, reducing the gap to 3.9 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting quickly. Winzerius Guy has significantly closed the gap with Rizaldi Adha, now trailing by just 54.4 seconds. In the meantime, Hugged 3 has made an impressive move to take the lead, overtaking Cedric and ascending to Pone. Additionally, Nukembokem has advanced to 6 after executing a successful overtake on Sabina 27. The race dynamics are shifting rapidly as positions change hands. Winzerius Guy is significantly closing in on Nukembokem, reducing gap by 59.9 seconds. Sidrek has successfully moved into P3 after overtaking Duff Dead, who then maneuvered past Amundsen from Team Nufgum Kings to take power. The positions are shifting quickly as the cars jostle for better placements. Buchizero has taken the lead, moving up to pole after successfully overtaking Huggard 3. Rizaldi Adha is showing impressive pace, rapidly closing in on Amundsen with a gap reduction of 65.7 seconds. Action is intensifying as the race continues. Sidrak from Team Live for Speed has successfully moved into P2 after overtaking Huggard 3. Meanwhile, Rizaldi Adha is gaining on Amundsen, reducing the gap by 3 seconds. Additionally, Lacroixan 1980 is also making progress, closing the distance to win Sirius Guy by 4 seconds. Captain Potato from Team Racing Potatoes has reduced the gap to Lacroixan 1980 by 4 seconds, making significant progress in the pursuit. The dynamics of the race are shifting as Captain Potato gains momentum on the track. Meanwhile, Lacroixan 1980 seems to be maintaining a steady pace, but will need to defend against this growing pressure. The gap is now under scrutiny as we continue to monitor their positions closely. Sabina 27 has reduced the gap to Rizaldi Adha by 4 seconds, showing impressive pace. Meanwhile, Amy is also making progress, cutting her deficit to Viola Olive Garden by 4.4 seconds. In another battle, Grinningjib is gaining on Kakaroto the Tishetind, closing the distance by 4.3 seconds. The competition is tightening up as these drivers push forward. Sidrak is off to a fantastic start, quickly asserting dominance at the front of the pack. Huggard 3 is hot on their tail, staying close and looking for an opening. Meanwhile, Duff Dad is hanging tough in third, not letting the leading duo get too far ahead. It's shaping up to be a thrilling first lap. Rizaldi Adha is closing in on Buchezero, reducing the gap to 3.3 seconds. Zoiga 22 has advanced to P12 after overtaking Okayoki 3. Meanwhile, Violin Oliver Garden has also made progress, moving up to P14 by passing 1999 September. 1999 September is making significant progress, reducing the time difference to Amy by 22.5 seconds. Meanwhile, Kakaroto 13 is steadily catching up to Zygo 22 from Team Vanguard, narrowing the gap by 7.1 seconds. Additionally, Win Series Guy from Team No Name Racing is also in pursuit, closing in on Nukembokem with a gap reduction of 3.1 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as these drivers push for position. Alpine has significantly reduced the gap to Grenenjib, now trailing by just 479.8 seconds. Duftad is also making progress, closing in on Hugged3 by 2 seconds. Meanwhile, Okayoki 3 is catching up to Violin Olive Garden, narrowing the distance by 3.8 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as these drivers intensify their efforts to overtake. Suzanne Greenberg is currently gaining on Kakaroto 13th, reducing the gap to 31.9 seconds. Snaku 515 is also making progress, narrowing the distance to Obelix Sumax by 8.9 seconds. Meanwhile, Amundsen is closing in on Duftad, with only a 3.1 second difference now. The dynamics are shifting as these drivers push for position. Captain Potato from Team Racing Potatoes has reduced the gap to Lacroix 1980 by 5.2 seconds, indicating a strong surge in pace. LPIOSD is working hard to close the distance to Greninja, now down by 59.2 seconds, suggesting a potential for an upcoming battle. XEI 17 is also gaining ground on Obelix Sumax, trimming the deficit by 5.4 seconds. It's shaping up to be an interesting segment of the race as these drivers push for position. Hugged3 is experiencing difficulties and has dropped 7 positions down to Pen. Amensong successfully overtook Buchazero, advancing to P3 shy. Meanwhile, Buchazero has also made a move on Rizaldi Adha, now holding Fowler. Amy and 1999 September are currently engaged in a close battle for 14th place. Amy, piloting the Alfa Romeo Montreal, is maintaining a steady pace, while 1999 September, in the Dodge Hemi Superstock, is applying pressure. The gap between them fluctuates as they navigate through the twists and turns of the track. Amy attempts an inside line on the last corner, but 1999 September holds firm on the outside. The race dynamics are heating up as both drivers push their limits, showcasing their skill and strategy in this tight fight for position. Winzerius Guy has significantly reduced the gap to Nukembo Kem, now just 4.6 seconds behind. Meanwhile, Saigoto T2 is also gaining on Amy, closing in by 2.1 seconds. The race dynamics are intensifying as these two competitors push their limits. Cedric from Team Live for Speed is currently in the lead, but Duff Dad is making significant progress, reducing the gap by 2.2 seconds. It appears that Duff Dad is optimizing his racing lines and increasing his speed in the corners. Cedric will need to defend his position as Duff Dad closes in. The dynamics between these two drivers will be crucial in the upcoming laps. Buchitsero is now just 1.9 seconds behind Amundsen as they exit the hairpin turn. The gap continues to close, with Buchitsero displaying impressive speed on the straights. Meanwhile, Nimrod has managed to overtake Alfiji Threatgamer at turn 5, moving into 5th place. The field is tightly packed, with several cars vying for position in the midfield. Sabine 27 is gaining on Rizaldi Adha, reducing the gap to 5.8 seconds. Captain Potato is also making progress, now just 740 seconds behind Huggard 3. Meanwhile, Grinning Jeb from Team Also No Name Racing is closing in on Suzanne Greenberg, with a reduced gap of 6.4 seconds. The race is heating up as these drivers push for position. Electromere from Team Quark Express is indeed making significant progress, reducing the gap to Zygo 22 by 3.3 seconds. The distance between them is now down to approximately 7.2 seconds. Meanwhile, Hypersonic 88 is holding steady in 4th place, with no immediate threat from behind. In 6th position, Automatons is attempting to close in on the 5th place car, currently sitting just under a second behind. The race dynamics are intensifying as strategies unfold. Hey, Retrowolf phone, 131. Welcome back to the racetrack. Wolf Checkered Flag, buckle up and get ready for some AI rubber burning action. Let's go. Party popper. Woonzerius Guy from No Name Racing has significantly closed the gap to Nukembokum, reducing it by 5.5 seconds. Meanwhile, XCI-17 is working hard to catch up with Snikufa 115, slicing down the distance by an impressive 47.1 seconds. In another matchup, Sabine 27 is gaining on Rizaldi Adha, bringing the gap down by 3.1 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as these drivers push their limits. Sidrak is currently being pursued by Duffdad, who has reduced the gap to 3.1 seconds. Rizaldi Adha has made a significant move, climbing to Fower after overtaking Buchizero from Team Quark Express. Sneeko 515 is also making progress, closing in on Obelixamax with a gap reduction of 4.2 seconds. Amin-san has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Duffdad by 5.2 seconds. Laprasol 1980 and Hugger 3 are engaged in a tight battle for 9th place, with Laprasol 1980 in the Aston Martin V8, Vantage 7, and Hugger 3 piloting the Chevrolet Chevelle Seth 70. The competition remains fierce as these two drivers jockey for position on the track. Sabine 27 from Team Blast is gaining on Buchizero, reducing the gap to 3.2 seconds. Gagut 3 is also making progress, closing in on Wazirius Guy by 4.9 seconds. Meanwhile, 1999 September is catching up to Okayoki 3, with a gap reduction of 2.3 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as the race continues. Captain Potato has successfully reduced the gap to Lacroixon 1980 by 2.1 seconds, showing strong pace as they navigate the track. Sego 22 from Team Vanguard is also making progress, closing in on 1999 September by 4 seconds. The race dynamics are tightening up as these drivers push their limits. Welcome back, Rafael. Party Popper ready to catch some insane AI racing action? Buckle up, it's gonna be a wild ride. Racing car dashing. Woonzerius Guy is now 2.7 seconds behind Nukembokum, making steady progress as he closes the gap. Meanwhile, Greninjeb is also gaining ground on Suzanne Greenberg, reducing the distance by 4.1 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as these drivers push to improve their positions. Captain Potato has successfully reduced the gap to La Croissant 1980 by 2.4 seconds, indicating a strong push as they approach the next corner. Meanwhile, in the mid-pack, Turbo Turtle has made an overtake on Speedsters, moving up a position and gaining momentum. The top three remain stable, with Gagarasa holding a solid lead, while the battle for fourth is heating up between Captain Potato and La Croissant 1980. Bugizero has successfully closed the gap to Rizaldi Adha by 2 seconds, indicating a strong push for the front position. Meanwhile, Kakaroto the Tercertin is also making strides, reducing the distance to Electric Murray by 2.6 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as both drivers apply pressure on their competitors. Aminson has significantly reduced the gap to Duff Dad, now just 2.7 seconds behind. Meanwhile, in fourth place, Speedster Sam is maintaining a steady pace, but hasn't made any moves to close in on the top three. In the back, Turbo Ted is battling it out with Electric Emma for sixth position, with Ted managing to overtake Emma on the last turn. The dynamics are shifting as Aminson continues to gain momentum. Bugizero has significantly reduced the gap to Rizaldi Adha, now trailing by just 2.9 seconds. Meanwhile, Okayoki 3 is also making strides, cutting the distance to Violon of Garden, down to 2.4 seconds. The race dynamics are tightening as both drivers push for overtakes. Duff Dad is now just 2.9 seconds behind Cedric, making significant progress in the chase. Meanwhile, the battle for Pate intensifies as Win Series Guy in the Aston Martin Vate Vantage 77 is closely contesting with Hugger 3 in the Chevrolet Cheval SS 70. La Croissant 1980 is also in the mix, reducing the gap to Hugger 3 by 2.5 seconds, setting up a potential three-way battle. The race dynamics are shifting quickly, as positions are challenged, and gaps close. Suzanne Greenberg has successfully moved up to P18 after overtaking Amy. Meanwhile, Greninja is gaining on Amy, reducing the gap by 4.7 seconds. The dynamics in this section of the race are intensifying as positions shift and strategies come into play. The race continues with Amy gaining on Suzanne Greenberg, reducing the gap now to 2.7 seconds. Behind them, Daniel Lee is maintaining third place but is under pressure from Sarah Kim, who is showing signs of a potential overtake as they approach the next turn. The cars are navigating the track smoothly, and the dynamics are shifting as positions tighten up. Keep an eye on that battle for third place. Violin Oliver Garden has made significant progress, closing the gap to La Croissant 1980 by 478.2 seconds, indicating a strong performance from Team Blast. Meanwhile, Duff Dad from Team Life for Speed is also gaining on Cydric, reducing that distance by 2.4 seconds. The tension builds as both competitors push forward in their respective pursuits. Sabina 27 has significantly closed the gap to Rizaldi Adha. Now, just 2 seconds behind. Captain Potato has made a successful move up to P9, overtaking Waziri Sky from Team No Name Racing. Meanwhile, 1999 Setembro has climbed to P13, after overtaking Sago 22 Dual Conti. The dynamics are shifting as drivers jostle for position. La Croissant 1980 is gaining on Waziri Sky, reducing the gap down to 59.7 seconds. Kakaroto 30 is also making a move on Violin Garden, with a gap of 53.3 seconds closing in. The positions are shifting as these drivers push their limits on track. Sabina 27 is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Rizaldi Adha by 4.3 seconds. Electric Murray has advanced to 13th position after successfully overtaking Violin Olive Garden. Following that move, Violin Olive Garden has also gained a position, now sitting in 14th after overtaking Okayoki 3. Sabina 27 has made significant progress, reducing the gap to Butcher Zero by 9.20 seconds. Meanwhile, Suzanne Greenberg is working to close the distance to 1999 September, with a current gap of 61.2 seconds. The dynamic between Sabina 27 and Butcher Zero appears to be intensifying as Sabina 27 continues to reel in their competitor. Haggett 3 is now just 58.9 seconds behind Rizaldi Adha, steadily reducing that gap as they approach the next turn. Meanwhile, Newcomb Bockham has successfully overtaken Sabina 27, advancing to 5 in the standing. The race dynamics are shifting as Haggett 3 continues to push forward with impressive speed. Rizaldi Adha has significantly reduced the gap to Nukembukem by 15 seconds, and is gaining momentum. In a recent move, Sabina 27 successfully overtook Nukembukem, advancing to the 5th position. The dynamics on the track are shifting as Rizaldi Adha continues to close in on Nukembukem. Nukem is currently leading but is facing pressure from Hook 3, who has reduced the gap to 6 seconds. Meanwhile, LPIOSD is making significant progress, though the distance to Greenijeb is still substantial at 466.4 seconds. In another battle, Snaku 515 is closing in on Lord of the Jungle, with just 6.1 seconds separating them. The dynamics are shifting as we move further into the race. Duff Dad is making significant progress, reducing the gap to Cedric by 4.4 seconds. The battle for P12 between Violin on a Garden in the Dodge Dart Hemi Superstock and Electric Miri in the Holden Monaro GTS 68 is intensifying, with both drivers closely matched. Meanwhile, Snaku 515 is gaining on Lord of the Jungle, closing the distance by 230 seconds. Aminsons has significantly reduced the gap to Duff Dad, now just 3.5 seconds behind. Okayoki 3 has made an impressive move to 13, overtaking Kakaroto the 30.io. Meanwhile, LPIOSD is also gaining on Greninjib, closing the gap by 2.4 seconds. The race dynamics are shifting as positions continue to change. RetroAllPhone31 said, "Hey Amy, what is your most disliked car?" Oh, that's a tough one. I think I'd say the car with the least love is probably the Fiat 131 Abarth. It's just not as flashy as the others. But hey, every car has its charm, right? Just like every streamer has their favorite. Hug 3 has significantly closed the gap to Nukembokum, reducing it by 2.9 seconds. Meanwhile, 1999 September has advanced to position 16 after successfully overtaking Suzanne Greenberg.d. However, Suzanne Greenberg has regained some ground, moving back up to position 17 by overtaking Amy. The positions are shifting as the race progresses. Lacroissant 1980 from Team Blast is currently gaining on the Serious Guy, narrowing the distance by 2.4 seconds. Okayoki 3 is also making progress, reducing the gap to Electric Murray by 3 seconds. Meanwhile, Greninjeb is closing in on Kakaroto 38 with a gap reduction of 4 seconds. The dynamics are shifting as these drivers push to improve their positions.